And Jen has a baby hug bug that she found hugging her so much. Oh, that's good. Let's just drop him back in all of our gear. Then we can experience him again.
Here is a little tiny tick that I found in my knee this morning.
Hug bug. That you found hugging your knee. And a relatively pleasant night, other than it was warm and I was bloody exhausted. I have a harder time with the heat than Jen. She doesn't sweat near as much, so she's not going through buckets of water. Today's Trail Angel was originally an opportunity to get off trail. They offered to give us a bed to sleep in and a shower and laundry and all that. And honestly, I was tempted, but we tend to swing back and forth. When things are going good, it's like, oh no, we don't want to waste all the time, especially after slower days like yesterday. So we decided to just meet them, go do a resupply, get a bite to eat, and then continue on. But at the moment, I am swung back to, I am tired. I wish Blondie would let me have a zero sometime this month. And at least partially because of said lack of zeros, Neros, longer hotel stays, etc. This last week was actually the most miles I've done in a week at 157, so we're moving okay. This campsite is just down the hill from a horse campsite, and we almost missed it last night. So as you can see, my pack looks kind of funny, and that's because it is really empty, basically. The advantage of these warmer weather things, less mountainous, less remote, is I don't have as much volume. I don't have a puffy. I have a really small sleeping bag and everything. So normally this is a little fuller, and I have that flat across the top. So technically I could be using a smaller pack like the Circuit or the Ohm, etc., but I find that I prefer to have a slightly larger pack because it gives me more flexibility, and I want to be able to use a normal bear canister on its side for when I go into the Sierra. I do get the occasional commentary from people I meet along the trail who have just been watching YouTube, and they think that all through hikers have these itty bitty tiny packs, and I have explained that I've actually met a couple of those folks that brag on YouTube about like the teeny tiny packs, and their average carry is often a little heavier, let's just say. It is nice having light packs, especially right now. It's basically, we have almost no food, and as of right now I have almost no water on my back. Obviously, since we are at times filling up with a gallon of water, the weight does vary quite a bit. We have at least been able to keep it to smaller food resupplies. I mean, on the Continental Divide Trail, my average food carry was about 5 days. And that adds up, especially as you get into the later or even middle phase where hiker hunger kicks in. And I am just pretty much ravenous right now. This is actually a relatively remote section as it goes on this trail. There are towns around, but the trail doesn't pass through them. It's dropping down and spending a bunch of time in the woods. It looks like once we pop out on the other side of the river to river trail in another, 3, 4, however many days, it is going to get more straightforward again. It appears it basically goes up the levee. So we'll see, but we might even manage to camp on the side of the old Mississippi again. And then after that, of course, we have the passage through St. Louis, where we have several friends and acquaintances and folks we are going to meet. And then I don't actually know that much about the next state other than the Katy Trail is supposed to be rather nice. We are in another dead zone here, so I wasn't able to pull a weather forecast, but the last one I saw said, at least for the next few days, yesterday was going to be the worst. Just combination of humidity plus the heat. This is the hottest it's gotten out here so far. Obviously, there is going to be a lot more heat ahead. There are kind of degrees, though. When we were going through, Louisiana, the worst of the days was not the heat, it was the humidity combined with the heat, and that's what was giving us heat rash and everything. And I mean, Jen already has some atrocious heat rash and Disney rash going on. She tends to get that a lot more. Whereas I tend to sweat a lot more and struggle with the heat, but I seem to be a little more resilient to those particular complications. In general, though, I mean, the sort of trips we are doing, it is not like we are the first person ever to do this. Others have managed to cross this section in this-ish time period. there are always ways to work around it. Sometimes that can mean night hiking. Sometimes that can mean just leaving early. I mean, if we had woken up and started hiking 3-4 hours ago, we would get a good chunk of the day before the heat. And we may end up doing that. Jen is a little more sensitive to lack of sleep, whereas I'll be dead tired and just kind of wind my way through anything. Doing that transition would be a little rough. And the last time we tried to leave appreciably early, and with the plan of stopping early, we ended up hiking late anyway. So it just made for a long day and a less rested Jen. The bigger thing when hiking in heat is just making good decisions. I mean, obviously, if it's a heat index of 114 and we're going for miles without shade, that can be dangerous no matter what you're doing. Also, if we're not aggressive on staying hydrated, you can get into trouble pretty quick. I mean, yesterday I called a stop because we were about to get to a more exposed roadwalk section. And, you know, I'd been soaked with sweat. I was feeling woozy. I just needed to cool off. And, you know, it was a couple of hours before it felt like I was comfortable moving forward. This is partially why I don't like committing to any sort of schedule, which gets really difficult on days like this because we are meeting a trail angel and they obviously need to know when to get into our area. But, you know, if it's a straightforward road walk, if nothing's going wrong, if the weather is good, we don't have to pause. I know how many miles I make. But sometimes a lot of those miles are in the morning. Sometimes they're in the evening. Sometimes I run into people and have social butterfly delays. Sometimes we have to hide in the shade for hours. You just never know. That is why, if anything, I get reluctant to try and meet folks sometimes just because of the added stress. And normally all the trail angels are super understanding. They are at least hikers themselves, or, you know, followed hikers long enough. They know how it goes. I just hate the idea of anybody having to wait for any length of time on us. There is really something to be said for having 5 days of food on your back. No hard schedule items like a post office you have to reach on the other side. And just being able to spend days and days hiking as far as you can without having to stress about schedules. We're actually trying to get me a new shirt. And as a part of that, we're trying to figure out where to send it. And it's always a crapshoot. I mean, looks like there is folks messing with the postal service again. So packages have been delayed all over the place. We had the shoebox that got delayed, and I've heard from friends on other trails that seems to be going on right now. So we have to make sure and buffer and send the packages further ahead. Unfortunately, each post office is often its own little fiefdom. So sometimes you have to talk to them in order to send a general delivery. Sometimes, I mean, Aurora, they called me and said they had a general delivery package. And I was like, oh, okay, you'll hold it for like 2 weeks, right? That's the policy. They're like, well, we don't normally, but yeah, okay, I guess we can. My preference when it's available is actually to send the package to some sort of resort or trail angel, just because we have a little more flexibility. Some of these small town post office, you know, they open from like 9:30 to 11:30 and then 12:30 to 2:30, and that's it. And they're only run by one person, so maybe they're open, maybe they're not. And not all of them. I have had ones like Winston out on that awesome part of the CDT nobody does, through the Black Hills, where the lady is known for bringing packages out to hikers after hours if she sees them at the community center. And in one of the towns on the Arizona Trail, similarly, the local lady just went above and beyond because she loved helping hikers. So at this point, the new shirt has arrived at my parents'. They are washing it, they are treating it with permethrin, and we'll probably be trying to send it to one of the trail angels near St. Louis. Try and find somebody who is on the east side and might be able to come bring it to us a little earlier. It's not that I can't wear this and it doesn't look that bad in selfie mode, but when you see the full body shots of me, it's kind of oversized and it hangs down, which can be a real pain when it's humid and soaking wet. I always go down in size at least somewhat, and I've been pushing hard this trip. I didn't last year just because the Mississippi was kind of funny. You know, we do all these through hikes and you exert yourself endlessly and you size down. Both Jen and I will look visibly different when we start versus when we finish. The Mississippi, we were working hard. I mean, we did 75 days without a single zero, and very rare, hotel days, Neros, etc. But because we were sitting, because we weren't carrying a pack, we were exhausted, but we just didn't have the weight loss, which is something I saw on that write-up from doing miles, which was how we originally found out about the Mississippi. Last year, the off season was really, really short. It was one of the shortest, and along with the between the PCT and the Eastern Continental, just because I finished so late, finishing the CDT on December 11th. This year, we really don't know. I have a counter going down till Thanksgiving, which is kind of when I figure I will probably be forced off by weather, if nothing else. If I make it across the Sierra before winter sets in, then I'm pretty much home free. I will run the clock as late as I have to, just hiking through Sacramento, San Francisco. But I figure more likely somewhere in the Utah, Nevada, Sierra Nevada section, I will eventually hit weather. That's most likely. And in that case, I, of course, have the backup where next year, after we do this Yukon trip that Jen is looking forward to so very much, she'll go back to school, and then I'll come and knock out the remainder, which should work because that would put me in the Sierra in fall, which is kind of the nicest time to be in the Sierra. But as always, we are keeping the best pace we can manage with all of our various challenges, and I am hoping to make San Francisco if at all possible. And honestly, I think the make or break on that is going to be once I get to Western Colorado. After this has been, the trail sections slow me down a little bit. I speed up on the road sections. I obviously have kind of a limitation when I'm carrying a pack on how much my feet can handle. But once I get to the CDT section, I mean, that does get rather hilly. There tends to be weather, and I will be rather tired at that point. By the end of the trip, I get kind of run down. And if you look at the southern end of the AT, I was booking along Georgia and all that. By the time I got into Canada, I was struggling to do 15 miles a day just because I was so tired. Brakes didn't work. I'd been out for almost 300 days at that point. This one should max out at 200 something, probably. But I do find that I handle the hikes better and better as I go forward. I spend less time in town, need less breaks, don't seem quite as exhausted. I think some of that is just the mental aspect. When I did the PCT, I felt like I was doing this big, amazing, difficult thing. And now I look at like the PCT and the AT and I'm like, oh, they're so straightforward. That was easy mode. And if you're wondering why I'm hiking alone and talking to myself again, presumably Jen changed her mind and came down here to filter. That or she was kidnapped from camp. Okay, I guess I'm not a solo hiker. Now I'm thinking you booby trapped one of these. Jen is trying the healthier sunscreen, and I keep being horrified by how it looks. The better thing is she has the same zinc lip stuff. And I saw the original Dungeons and Dragons movie, not the fun one with Chris Pine, the one where Jeremy Irons was like, ah! The guy was totally chewing the scenery. You could tell he was in a bad movie, knew it, and loved it. But anyway, his henchman was a large bald man who had like bluish lips. And every time, don't mind me, I'm just choking to death. Every time she has that on her lips, I always think it is the henchman from the original Dungeons and Dragons movie. Considering I have been said to make Vanilla Ice look ethnic, at least I'm not the pastiest one on the hike now. There are some really pretty bits back here. No wonder we're seeing mosquitoes, though.
Alas, we are leaving the wilderness for now. So as long as we were in the wilderness, the blazes were this more natural-ish color to try to blend in with the trees more. Now that we're out of the wilderness, they are right back to the garish white and blue blazes.
This is really pretty. So much for the humidity going down. 9:20 in the morning, and there is not a dry bit of cloth on me. Well, it's an old sign. We do always wonder, we never really have context for whether the water is good in an area. So I've actually taken to asking people, like saying explicitly, hey, I need drinking water, is this okay to fill off of? For some reason, she was filming the butterflies instead of filming the corn. She's just not that excited by corn anymore. And we have successfully found Jen a dive bar, or whatever this is. I've heard a lot about Shotgun Eddys. They have air conditioning, they have cold drinks, they have Wi-Fi, and they have nachos. I am okay with life at the moment. I was just trying to convince Jen to let me get a plug-in ice maker, saying that we are finding plugs way more than we're finding ice. Sadly, she giggled and said no. And Jen is in such a hurry to get out the door without me buying anything else, she just grabbed all the groceries and is walking away. So Jen wanted to see Sand Cave, and instead of walking off trail to it, we are going to come visit it here, which saved us some time. Ooh. That is certainly a big alcove. Take 3.
This is the largest sandstone cave in all of North America. And the biggest cave I've been in a long time, like several years.
Bro is here. So Carl back there came out, we had lunch with him, finally got some so-so nachos and lots of iced tea. That was good at least.
And good tacos.
And then he drove us to a Walmart, so we got to resupply. We got some time in air conditioning. We went and saw a sand cave without having to go off trail. And even better news, we seem to have burned the entire part of the day before the red thunderstorms hit. So we are leaving right as about there getting into this area. So all the boring part, just hiking along in the relative cool shade, we skipped that.
The last week you've been saying you just wish some rain would show up, so you're finally getting your wish.
And so the universe is gonna strike me with lightning just down here, just out of irony. That, or we're gonna get enough rain to make southern Florida look like, you know, the arid desert. Is southern Florida even there anymore? 12 feet of rain on like 8 foot of land above sea. Goodbye, southern Florida. So we were resupplied for a couple of days, got a few necessaries at Walmart, took the opportunity since we had a ride. And now we are just trying to get across the road walk and into the trees before things get too biblical here. And of course you had the great Florida dog wipe of 2022, 2023. So we are past the road walk, back into the trees at least. I believe we are mostly going to be under the canopy. We will see if that thunderstorm hits us and we have something we can get under. I'm okay with that. 4:23, we are hearing booms getting closer, and it is just starting to drizzle. So the fun times are here. Carl was super nice, and he did offer to, he had offered to let us come shower, laundry, have a night off trail. And right as we were leaving, he did try and offer again, saying that he was happy to take us back to his house. We could hang out. And when this is all passed at 7 o'clock, we could come back out here. But we didn't feel like that would have cost us too much progress. So we found an overhang right as it was just starting to rain. So we decided to take a break and see what's happening. And the thunder is getting louder, but it's not pouring. And whenever I am undercover, I wish it to pour. Long history of weathermen. Jen has to go stand in the rain to report it's raining. You can't just go back to the studio and say that there are 100-mile-an-hour winds. You must experience it. Okay, if you could get struck by lightning now.
We're feeling a little bit wimpy, but it just felt like the timing was sending us a message. Right when it started to rain, we crossed the stream and saw this overhang. And I've literally the last couple days been talking about how cozy it would be to wait out a storm under one of these overhangs.
I've been talking how it'd be fun to get struck by lightning. And the irony of the reports of don't stay in shallow caves during thunderstorms.
Yeah, so allegedly you're slightly more likely to be struck by lightning if you're under an overhang because the electricity can like arc from the rock to the ground. I'm not too worried about that though. On the one hand, once this rain stops, we will have a lot of mud to hike through. On the other hand, hopefully all the F's, newts, turtles, salamanders, and other critters will all come out to play.
Okay, 6 o'clock. The thunder has moved on. It did rain a fair amount and we are actually dry. So this was probably worth losing 4 miles of sliding around in the mud while getting soaked. Except now we get to slide around in the mud while getting wet from all the vegetation. Yay.
All the salamanders can come out now.
I've been making Blondie go first, so I don't have to catch the spider webs. And yes, that is not hair. Those are spider webs. Where are the spiders? We don't know. Every now and then something crawls out of your knee. And what's that poking out of your ear? So this is the trail access to that cave we saw earlier, which we saved ourselves a couple miles of walking doing it this way.
Thanks,
And it was fine. Jen was more excited about it. I figured it was going to be an alcove.
It was cool.
Sure enough, it was an alcove. The rock walls were cooler than the cave aspect. 8 o'clock, back in my day, we didn't stop this early. We hiked until 9:30 at least, but you know, this younger generation, they just can't be bothered, so I think we're stopping here.
Oh, we had such a lazy day today, but it was fun.
Speak for yourself. I've been jawing my butt off. And
We got to camp with water and fireflies.
funnily enough, the fireflies were actually active during the storm. It got dark enough. It seems to be triggered by how dark it is.
Had a easier day today, but still got to see a lot of real pretty forests, some cool rocks, including the sand cave, and got resupplied and got recovered. This is a really nice camp, our first camp next to a creek, I think. The mosquitoes are low, and excited for another good couple of days through the forest. Next couple days should be another clear run along the river to river trail. Home sweet home for the night.